The NBA's Eastern Conference is about as unpredictable as it gets. The teams at the bottom of the conference each have young talent that many are banking on taking a leap. The teams in the middle have at least one all-star caliber player and pieces surrounding that player to make them dangerous on any given night. And the top of the East has two title favorites and teams with multiple All-NBA caliber players. Today, we're going to break down the Eastern Conference and predict where each team will finish at the end of the season. At the 15th seed, I have the Washington Wizards. In the offseason, the Wizards did what the basketball community had been begging them to do for the past 5 years, and that's fully commit to a rebuild. They gave up their two best players, Bradley Beal and Kristaps Porzingis, for future assets, and brought in young talent like Jordan Poole in hopes that they can develop him. There are some positive parts to this team, like Bilal Coulibaly, the Wizards' 2023 first-round pick, who is the definition of a project, someone who will come out of the gate slowly, but hopefully develop into something better. And the Wizards have the luxury of having an absurd amount of cap space, so they can take on bad contracts and receive future first-round picks as compensation. But other than that, there's nothing on this team that I look forward to watching, and I'd be shocked if they were anything more than a 20 to 30 win team. At the 14th seed, I have the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets have had one of the most eventful off seasons as a team, and for maybe the first time ever, almost nothing positive happened. The Hornets went through the whole Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson debate before taking Miller, who many believe to be the wrong pick. Then, they went through the Kai Jones drama, which ultimately led to him getting released. And now, they're dealing with Miles Bridges, a 20-point-per-game scorer in 2021, turning himself into the police. But back to the basketball aspect of this team, the Hornets whiffed on so many draft picks recently that there's no young talent on this team other than Miller, LaMelo Ball, and Mark Williams to develop. That's all without mentioning that there are only 4 players on this team with over 5 years of NBA experience, and 2 of those 4, Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier, are likely going to be traded by February. It's a toss-up regarding who will be the worst team in the East between Charlotte and Washington, but I'm giving Charlotte a couple more wins on the season solely because LaMelo Ball alone can carry this team to at least 25 wins. At the 13th seed, I have the Detroit Pistons. It makes me sad to put the Pistons so low on this list because I actually think they have a solid roster. 2021 number 1 overall pick Cade Cunningham is back, and I'm predicting he takes a huge leap as a scorer and playmaker. Young stars Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren look to have taken a leap in the offseason, and their new head coach Monty Williams has the pedigree to take this team to a potential play-in spot. It's just hard to predict how this team will fully mesh on the court with so many young pieces. How will Ivey's development be impacted by Cade Cunningham's return? How will Detroit figure out who plays between their 4 solid young big men? And where does 2023 5th overall pick Asar Thompson fit into all this? There's just too many question marks for me to put this team any higher than 13th. But I wouldn't be shocked if the Pistons sneak their way into the play-in in the East. At the 12th seed, I have the Chicago Bulls. We've seen this core for the past 2 seasons, and if Lonzo Ball were fully healthy, they would be one of the top 6 teams in the East. But without Ball, this is a 500 team at best. So in theory, the Bulls would make the play-in if they kept their current core. But after years of just being average, I have a hunch that stars will be traded in Chicago. By February, I would bet that either DeMar DeRozan or, more likely, Zach LaVine will be traded for young stars and future assets. Because I'm not completely sold on the Colby White and Zach LaVine backcourt, especially defensively, and I'm not sure if 2024 overall pick Patrick Williams will develop into anything offensively. And at this point in their careers, DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic are bound to lose a step. If this core stays intact for the entirety of the season, I would expect the Bulls to finish within that 8th to 11th seed range. But something tells me one of their stars is going to get traded, and for that reason, they finish the season at the 12th seed. At the 11th seed, I have the Orlando Magic. The Magic are led by Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner, 2 young forwards who look to lead the Magic to playoff relevance for the first time since Dwight Howard. Also on this team is one of the top candidates to win Most Improved Player, Markelle Fultz, a solid big man in Wendell Carter Jr., and young, mostly unknown pieces in Jalen Suggs, Anthony Black, and Jet Howard. There's a lot to like about this young team, but there's also some missing pieces that make me hesitant to make the Magic a play-in team. For starters, the Magic need to address the Jonathan Isaac situation. When Isaac plays, he's a versatile defender and a valuable role player, but that's only when he plays. In the past 3 seasons, Isaac has played only 11 games. And while it's tough to give up on a player that has, or at this point had, a lot of potential, he needs to get off the roster. After that, they need to figure out their guard situation. The Magic already had 3 young starting caliber guards fighting for playing time, and after drafting Anthony Black 6th overall, now they have 4. The question is which of those 4 guards will be traded. There's a lot of potential with this Magic team, and it wouldn't be shocking to see them in the postseason, but for now, I have them just outside the top 10 of the Eastern Conference. At the 10th seed, I have the Brooklyn Nets. Before the preseason started, I had the Nets as a bottom 5 team. I just didn't see where their offense would come from, and with the question mark of Ben Simmons surrounding the Nets, it was easy to put them at the bottom of the East. But after diving deeper into this team and watching them in the preseason, I think it's safe to say that the Nets are in the mix to be a play-in team. I'm a full believer in number 1 option Mikal Bridges, who looked stellar at the end of last season. I'm a believer in Nicholas Claxton, one of the best big man defenders in the NBA. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I'm a believer that Ben Simmons will have somewhat of a bounce-back season. I'd be crazy to say he returns to 76ers version of Simmons so quickly, but all I want to see this season are signs of his stellar defense and some form of an offensive game. The Nets are a solid team, but I'm curious how this team plays with a full offseason to mesh. At the 9th seed, I have the Toronto Raptors. I think people are misjudging this Raptors team, especially considering their main core, besides Fred VanVleet, is back. Pascal Siakam is still a 25-point per game scorer who brings All-NBA caliber play for all 82 games. OG Anunoby is still one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA. And if the Raptors utilize Scottie Barnes correctly, he has a chance to be a great point forward and primary ball handler. This is the same team that made the play-in last season despite subpar play from Fred VanVleet. And after trading for Jakob Poeltl, this team went 15-11. I understand the reservations for this team because this offense mainly ran through VanVleet and there might be an adjustment period before Toronto finds their footing. But I don't see why this core isn't good enough to be, at the worst, a play-in team. At the 8th seed, I have the Miami Heat. I know, it's very low for the team that most recently won the Eastern Conference. But we all know the Heat are not a regular season team, and there's some signs that this team might regress. For starters, I'm worried about this team's depth. Losing Max Strus and Gabe Vincent is nothing to look past, but we do need to remember that it's the Miami Heat, and they make players no one has ever heard of into good rotational pieces. I'm also worried about how this team progresses with the continued regression of Kyle Lowry and Kevin Love, and the potential regression of 34-year-old Jimmy Butler. I'd like to see Bam and Tyler Hero take a jump and take some of the load off of Butler, but what are the odds of that happening? And while their defense will be stellar, is that enough to carry this team despite potential offensive woes? There are too many question marks for this Heat team for me to rank them any higher than 8th, but I'm sure it will be a repeat of last season, a lackluster regular season followed by a solid playoff run. At the 7th seed, I have the Atlanta Hawks. We are in year 6 of the Trae Young experience in Atlanta, and it would be an understatement to say that it's been a roller coaster ride for Hawks fans. The first 3 years of his career, Young looked incredible as a playmaker and shot creator, even drawing comparisons to early years Steph Curry. Young's peak came in the 2021 playoffs, where he pushed the Hawks past the Knicks in the first round and the first-seeded Sixers in the second round, before falling short to the eventual champion Milwaukee Bucks in 6 games. Things were looking up for Atlanta, but since that playoff run, Young and the Hawks just haven't looked the same. But with a full offseason under Quinn Snyder and a chip on their shoulder, I'm a believer that this team will be in the running for a guaranteed playoff spot. And when you look at their roster, it's not crazy to say that they could be around the 4th or 5th seed. We all know what Trae Young and DeJounte Murray are, but the rest of their starting 5, DeAndre Hunter, Sadiq Bey, and Clint Capella, are pieces that are perfect to surround 2 ball-dominant guards. I know I have them 7th, but they have the potential to be a top 4 team in the East. At the 6th seed, I have the Indiana Pacers. This is probably my craziest prediction for this upcoming season, but I really like this Pacers team. And the reason why I like them so much is Tyrese Halliburton, who broke out last season averaging a 20 and 10 and leading the Pacers to a 500 record when he was healthy. In 2023, Halliburton leads a team that includes 3 new starters, Bennedict Mathurin, Bruce Brown, and Obi Toppin. Another reason why I'm a fan of this Pacers team is their depth. Let's say a player like Bruce Brown has to miss 10 games due to injury. You can easily slide a player like Aaron Nesmith in or move around the lineup to have rookie Jarris Walker start. If Bennedict Mathurin has to miss some time, Andrew Nembhard is someone who already has experience starting with this team. I know this core is young, but the East is so wide open that I see a team nobody saw making the playoffs winning 40 to 45 games. And for me, that team is the Pacers. At the 5th seed, I have the Philadelphia 76ers. The reason why the Sixers fall in the standings after years of sitting in the top 3 is because there's so many question marks surrounding this core. We all know what we're going to get out of Joel Embiid in the regular season, but almost every other position is a mystery. Like, what's going to happen with James Harden? Is he going to get traded? And if he doesn't get traded, will he try to sabotage the Sixers season? And if Harden does get traded, can Tyrese Maxey take a jump and be a second option? Even if you take away the James Harden situation, I don't trust the rest of their team. Tobias Harris had a solid 2022 campaign, but I don't know if at 31 years old, he will continue to get better. PJ Tucker is the Sixers starting 4, and he hasn't looked the same since the Bucks' 2021 title year. Their bench consists of Patrick Beverley, who is almost nothing offensively, Kelly Oubre Jr., who is almost nothing defensively, and Paul Reed, who is okay in limited minutes, but not your ideal backup big man. There's just so much working against this Sixers season, but despite this, I'm a complete believer of new head coach Nick Nurse, and I still think Joel Embiid is one of the 7 best basketball players on the planet. It's going to be a rough season for Philly fans, but I still think they comfortably make the playoffs. At the 4th seed, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. The worst kept secret in the NBA is that Donovan Mitchell is leaving the Cavaliers within the next 2 seasons, whether it be via trade or via free agency. But while Mitchell is on the Cavs, this team is a guaranteed 45 or more wins, especially considering that the Cavs only got better from their 50-win season in 2022. We all know the Cavs starting 5 is electric. The Garland-Mitchell backcourt is one of my favorites in the NBA, and as a side note, I fully expect Garland to transform into a CP3 type player within the next 3 seasons. And that's going to be helped by Evan Mobley, the 22-year-old forward who has all the makings to be a star in this league. Joining these 3 stars are Jarrett Allen, the former All-Star who is a consistent 15 and 10 a night, and Max Strus, a key piece in the Heat's 2023 title run. The reason why this team may fall down in the standings is depth, though the bench looks much better this season than last. Karis LeVert, Isaac Okoro, and Georges Niang are solid forwards off the bench, but after that, the Cavs have no real rotational pieces. But despite this, their starting 5 is just so good that's going to be enough to be a top 4 seed in the East and a team that can be dangerous in the playoffs. At the 3rd seed, I have the New York Knicks. I have to admit, I may be a little high on the Knicks, but I don't see a reason why I shouldn't be. Since Jalen Brunson made his Knicks debut, we've seen a different version of Julius Randle and a complete culture shift. Because finally, the Knicks found their point guard, a guy who can playmake and set up his teammates at any point in the game and get a bucket in the clutch. And adding players like Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo to a team that already has 7 solid rotational players makes this Knicks team even more dangerous. But what makes me a little concerned about this team is their lack of star power compared to the rest of the top of the East. Brunson and Randle are solid pieces to have on your team, but they're a tier or 2 below guys like Giannis, Tatum, and Mitchell. But the upside to a lack of stardom is that if one of those 2 guys have to miss some time, you have a guy on the bench who can replicate at least a couple of the Knicks' star traits. I'm completely in on the Knicks roster, but I would be stupid to put them above the consensus top 2 teams in the East. At the 2nd seed, I have the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks made major noise in the offseason, trading Drew Holiday and Grayson Allen for Damian Lillard. And while we haven't seen this Bucks team at full strength, I can already see how Dame and Giannis are going to dominate almost every team in the NBA. Even when you take away those two MVP caliber players, the Bucks still have Chris Middleton, who was a second option on a title team just 3 years ago, Brook Lopez, who finished in the top 3 of Defensive Player of the Year voting last season, and Bobby Portis, one of the best 6 men in the NBA. This Bucks team isn't your normal team that has 2 or 3 stars on it. This team is one of the best in the league because the Bucks actually have some form of depth. And because of that, it will be easier for the Bucks to make a run in the playoffs, because when Dame and Giannis eventually have to take a break, a guy like Chris Middleton, Bobby Portis, or even Marjon Beauchamp could get hot and keep the Bucks in the game. And if it weren't for the team above the Bucks, I would say they're clear title favorites. But at the first seed, I have the Boston Celtics. The Celtics somehow improved on their 2022 Finals runner-up team and added 2 former All-Stars Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. And while Boston lost their heart and soul in Marcus Smart, it's not inconceivable to say that Derek White can fill that role and probably do a better job. Their starting 5 is the most complete in the entire league, and with bench pieces like Peyton Pritchard and O'Shea Brissett ready to enhance their role, the Celtics are 8 deep with 4 potential All-Stars and a core that's made multiple deep playoff runs. The only thing that concerns me about this team is Joe Mazzulla, but even then, the Celtics finally surrounded this young head coach with veteran assistants who can help Mazzulla with in-game adjustments. It's going to be hard to defeat this team in a 7-game series. And that's why I believe the Celtics will win the NBA Finals. The top-end talent of the East is elite, but the Celtics just have so much star power that I don't think any team, including the Giannis and Dame-led Bucks, can stop them. Out west, the only 2 teams with a chance to defeat Boston are the Nuggets and the Lakers, but I just don't know how either of those teams can defend the Celtics' 4-headed monster. But what do you think? Comment below your NBA Finals predictions, and remember to subscribe for more NBA videos just like this one. I'm Julian with TalkBackSports, and I'll see you next time.